Hi, everybody. This is day 1906. Early in the morning, early in the morning, we were burning the midnight oil. And, we are absolutely focused because we're making the connections between the Harts and, and El Mayo and El Mayo. Um, so here we go. Let me make sure that I'm on. And, we represented. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. So just earlier, right before I came on, we reposted um, a few of the letters, a few of the evidence, the hard copies um, of Leilani's complaints to CID, to FBI, to the Attorney General, the VA, and and they were about her husband, and the allegations are absolutely jaw-dropping serious, and the allegations are also against her children, because when you are an officer in the military and you're engaging in those kind of activities, that's criminal. That's very, very criminal. And but the focus is on Leilani, because she did not report for decades. Her failure to report, her, and this is, the darkness is cheap, and Scrooge loved it, right? Liked it that way. I posted that quote from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. This is the thing. Not until scrutiny came upon her family did she even bother to report. Matter of fact, she's a convicted criminal. She engaged in criminality. She has a very long criminal history. And, so when you find out that she has a long history of trying to bully people, intimidate people, violating restraining orders, causing a lot of problems in her neighborhood, and on and on. And we've talked to her victims, her other victims, who, it's very hard to engage in this. What do I want to call it? Really, moving the machine towards justice. You have to drive them to do the right thing. And that takes a lot of work. That takes absolutely a lot of work. And many victims are not able to do this day in and day out for years. It's just incredible what it takes. The letters, the thousands, it's got thousands of letters, and also the investigation, and also being your own media, right? Thank God for social media. Thank God for the internet, because, the media has been compromised. And so you have to be your own media, and also your own investigator, and file all of this, all of the crimes that you find, in order to get to drive the authorities to do the right thing, um, to hold those accountable for the taking of a life of a U.S. Army Fort Bliss whistleblower, soldier, young, 21 years old. It's just incredible. And so we've talked to the victims, and we absolutely understand that, most of them have families of small children. They still have their jobs. Um, and, there's just, it's just not doable. It's just not doable to take on this task that God has given us to do. And He's given us the means to do it, meaning the time. And of course, the energy to come on at 1 o'clock in the morning after a lot of investigation, a lot of documenting, a lot of creating um, letters and filing, getting all the addresses, because not only do you have to investigate the case, but you also have to find how to file these things, and who to contact, because the bureaucracy is alive and well, and they are, well, the dark is cheap, and Scrooge liked it that way. Okay, liked it, and this is really describes, when you go through A Christmas Carol and read that during this time of year, with your family. I don't know if you do. It's has always been like a little bit of a horror um, show for our family. The Christmas Carol is kind of, it's very scary. It's a very scary, has a great ending, but it's a very scary um, story, very dark. And Charles Dickens, most of his stories are very dark, but he absolutely knows human nature, and you can learn a lot from him about human nature. And once we knew that Leilani Hart was a convicted criminal, once we received these documents, because these documents she was passing around, right? She was passing around. So it was just a matter of time before we received them. Um, Once you read it, once you know what's happening, and then you connect that to our conversations, and many people might not know this, but we talked to James Hart. I talked with James Hart. I talked with Dallas Hart, and those conversations recorded, um, really reveal a lot. And many people might say, why does the Halliday family say Mormon faction? Well, it was James Hart who said Mormon, not faction, but Mormons. He's the one that alerted us to this common denominator. And when we checked on that, um, it was absolutely so. He was absolutely telling us the truth. From Woody Hunt to Colin Wetton to Tavita Nusa to Solomona Nusa to Leilani Hart to Dallas Hart to many, many more. Many more. And so this is absolutely from us speaking with James Hart. We were willing to speak, and we are still willing if there's enough time in the day, because right now we're being contacted quite a bit, um, but we are willing to speak with everybody. We were in communication with Dallas Hart's football coach, and of course with Dallas Hart, and of course 3 months every day endlessly with those that circle Dallas Hart. that are absolutely the most vile and vulgar individuals you could ever imagine. And, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put that together, that that's how you have to be if you're in connection with El Mayo or cartel activity and El Mayo's activity, um, because you have to be a very vile, vulgar person to be involved in that kind of business. And these people are absolutely involved in this type of business. So we'll get started. 1,960 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room and taken to the arms room, building 2874 or whatever. It's late, 1 o'clock in the morning. The same building, and that um, arms room is soundproof, and his life was taken. It was brutal. His life was taken, and then his body was stolen, dismembered, and trafficked to Mexico. And evidence indicates that partial remains ended up at Plenitude Crematorium. The prime suspect is Dallas Hart, Leilani Hart's son, Richard's platoon leader, which we have multiple witness and evidences that he was Richard's platoon leader. And the military being compromised because Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, Cardona Sean Bernabe, is totally compromised in all of this, along with General Garrett, along with Lieutenant General Donna Martin, along with Major General Clem Coward, Major General or the Lieutenant Colonel Roddick, Michael Roddick, and Patrick Matlock, Major General Patrick Matlock, and of course, General McConville, General Mealy. They are absolutely compromised and aiding and abetting enemies of this country. There is no suspicion of it. It is absolutely confirmed. They absolutely were, and need to be held accountable with the most severe punishment on the table. On the table. Because it was not just Richard as a whistleblower who lost his life. It was many, many of our sons and daughters in these monsters' hands that lost their lives. And so much taxpayer money in fraud, waste, and abuse that caused economic harm and pain to so many families in the United States, and has put us in, $38 trillion in debt. The toughest, highest penalty, punishment needs to be on the table for these monsters, because they have no excuse. They are trained. They are told over and over again what their oath is, what their duty is, what their creed is, and they betrayed each and every one of them over and over and over again. and also tampered with the election, the 2020 election. That is not suspicion. That is absolutely the way the dominoes fall and what they were doing. The Walmart mass shooting, absolutely connected to Richard's unit. Knowing the false narrative and letting it stand against President Trump, against their commander in chief. It was what I call mutinous. And this is from those that preach having each other's back, having each other's six, being an army of one, being all you can be, having esprit de corps. And my dad kept telling me after going to Fort Bliss, after we returned, and even there, he said, there's no esprit de corps. This is a red flag. There's no esprit de corps. Something is wrong. And now we know it was betrayal at the highest level, outside of the President of the United States, because even remember General John Kelly. General John Kelly, his violations are the worst. Because he went and worked for the PAN party, the cartel government puppets party. He went and worked for Mario Campos on the recommendation from Woody Hunt, from Paul Foster, from Alejandra de la Vega, who is Foster, who is the wife of Paul Foster, who was also working for the governor of Chihuahua, Mexico, which is a narco state, which is absolutely controlled by the cartel, which is an enemy of humanity, enemy of the United States, an enemy of God. And I can say that because when you are targeting pregnant women to harvest babies and organs and traffic children and drugs and arms and whatever is not bolted down that doesn't belong to them, and that the human body is treated in such a way where they are rat infested, maggot infested, recycled in this plenitude crematorium while deceiving the families with urns full of construction material. I can say that these people are enemies of God. And I think as Christians, we need to stand up. All this nonsense of being like a little flower and not standing up to evil is a really big problem. Is a really, really big problem. Forgiveness. There is no forgiveness without restitution. And that's why the penalty for what they have done needs to be carried out, needs to be the absolute eye for an eye, and that is the highest level punishment needs to be on the table so that we can have forgiveness, so that we can have peace, so that the spirit of our son, Richard Halliday, can be at peace, because there is no forgiveness, no peace without accountability, without restitution. You can't just say, you did me wrong and okay, I forgive you. No, no. I've known this for years. My Oma, being, I guess, a widow, very, very poor, betrayed by her government, um, betrayed by so many during World War II and afterwards. But rising to the occasion, I just can't even describe how fortunate I am to have had my grandmother, my German grandmother, and she was adamant that there is no peace, there is no forgiveness without restitution. And think about it as Christians. There is no Christianity without the cross, the ultimate restitution, the ultimate redemption. And so I have no problems facing this evil and saying that they need to pay for what they did. They absolutely need to pay for what they did and what they are still doing. And of course, the number one target, I believe, is Christianity, and number two is really President Trump. They have targeted him, targeted him, targeted him. And because Richard was President Trump's federal whistleblower of what was going on at the border in our military installation, connected to the Walmart mass shooting that was used to frame a narrative to attack him, to tamper with an election, with a false narrative, to hurt the community by spreading these lies. That's why Richard was targeted at the highest level. Do not forget, it was El Mayo. El Mayo is, the billionaire cartel kingpin, lord, whatever you want to call him. I call him the, billionaire monster of monsters. It was his lawyer who took interest in Richard, who made sure it was his signature on Richard's paperwork, along with Jaime Esparza. And it is no coincidence that it was Jaime Esparza and Steven Spitzer, now instead of the DA's office, in the AUSA office, the federal level prosecutor's office, with Connell Whitten at the FBI, that colluded with the very wealthy businessman in El Paso with an unusual plane, right? Unusual, not a usual plane, but an unusual plane. Only very few, very, very, very few people are a businessman with this plane. To organize the kidnapping, the drugging. Well, really, it was a deception to get him on that plane, to bring him to Santa Teresa, which is New Mexico. But instead of taking El Mayo to Las Cruces, where they have a federal judge there, they took him to the El Paso FBI office where Connell Wetton was the assistant special agent in charge. And why Steven Spitzer is important in this is because he was the narcotics prosecutor. Okay? That's why he's so important in this. And Jaime Esparza, if you haven't seen, find Richard Halliday's posts on Jaime Esparza connecting the dots with the imposter DA that we have right now in El Paso, James Bonneau, who changed his name to add Montoya so that he could deceive people of his, get that Hispanic vote. They have been long friends. And, Jaime Esparza, his daughter, and James Bonneau absolutely, were mentored by Jaime Esparza. And they absolutely know the Walmart shooter's family, the Mayellas. And Spitzer's wife knew them because of their just about weekly meetings together. So they absolutely kept this a secret, that the narrative that they framed was just political. It was political, a deception of the people, because we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. The assault was on our republic, the system, our freedom of speech, our right to vote. The deception is so egregious that the penalty needs to be very, very high. Very high. And because how can we move forward and prosper and have peace, have forgiveness, if we are just living in deception? Letting these people rob us of everything with deception. It's called witchery. It's called, it's witchery, right? All this deception, manipulation, forging of documents, tampering with death certificates, tampering with death documents, transfer documents, humanitarian aid documents, medical documents, you name it. They're tampering, they're forging, insurance forgery. The deception is so destructive. And we have the names, we have the hard evidence. We have an imposter as the prosecutor. The prosecutor that was in there, Jaime Esparza, in the DA's office, and then in the USA, the AUSA's office of the Western District of Texas, totally compromised in the worst way, with the worst betrayal. They have forgotten um, goodness. Their hearts are so hard. They're really monsters. I just can't even say it any other way. They've become Scrooge before Scrooge met the the night of redemption, facing the chains. They've become Marley and like A Christmas Carol, where they're damned to hell because they have forged these chains, link by link, right? Link by link, and hung them around themselves. And they themselves are the ones that forged this chain of hell. And that's why we absolutely have to have a come to Jesus moment. And that means we need to have accountability. So, these letters and documents, affidavit from Leilani Hart, who has different aliases. Um, she's changed her name. I think it's illegal how she changed her name. Um, they tell a story so horrendous. And I've only posted a snippet. It is really a nightmare. And they target children and they target soldiers and they are just up to no good. And that's a betrayal of life. We've been taught, if you've gone into Girl Scouts or, if you're a Christian, you leave a place better than you found it. You bring heaven on earth, not hell on earth. You become a blessing to other people, not a curse. And I can tell you, those letters show me that the Hart family have been a curse. And um, that's why this has to be addressed. And, it's kind of like, if you know something bad is coming, you've got to try to stop it, right? If something is polluted, if something is tainted, if something is smelly and stinky and rotten, you got to get rid of it. So this has to be addressed. And their actions, if all of what, if only a portion of what was written down and alleged is correct, um, the highest penalty. And don't forget, Dallas Hart is the prime suspect of taking Richard's life. And those connections are with the mortuary affairs, because don't forget, his family is Solomon Nusa, mortuary operations officer for the U.S. Army. And the vile and vulgar group that was continuously in contact with us, in communication with us, is absolutely mortuary affairs related, trafficking related, deception related, all of that. So this has to do with La Diabla, Martha Mendez Aguilar, whose family worked for Beto O'Rourke, who is connected, Martha La Diabla is connected to Plenitude Crematorium, whose owner's home is right beside Beto O'Rourke. If Beto O'Rourke cared about the people, he wouldn't allow over 400 bodies to be stacked like cordwood, rat infested, maggot infested, recycled for humanitarian aid money, fraud. I mean, the level of fraud and the level of crime when you're targeting pregnant women, when you're working to create an environment like having co-ed barracks, right? Whoever thought of that is absolutely monstrous in itself, because you don't make co-ed barracks when you have 17 to 25-year-olds. Sorry, you don't do it. You're setting up for problems and problems and more problems, like crisis pregnancies. And La Diabla loved crisis pregnancies. This is no coincidence. The domino effect that policies, tampering, deception, narratives, um, the the movies and media propaganda to absolutely frighten us, to lead us to think something is cool when it's not cool at all. Um, we have to be so careful, because they do have control and access of what goes into our mind. And the hypnosis, I always say, the swirly eyes. And why was Richard so different? Well, he was raised in Europe. He was raised in Ireland and the Midlands of Ireland. You know, most people live in Dublin, right? Most people in Ireland live in Dublin. So if you live in the Midlands, it's, you know, your neighbors are the cows and the sheep and farmers, and you know, the stone walls and wide open spaces. Um, you have to pay TV tax there, you know, whether you like it or not. And then we don't we didn't even watch TV. Um, he he was uncompromised by the um, all the propaganda, you know. Uh, he hadn't gone through all the propaganda. He was homeschooled. He didn't go to school. He went to schools, but not the government sponsored schools. He went German language school, Korean, um, agriculture. He went to learn how to be barista business. He uh, piano, karate. Um, I think we did all kinds of, well, there's all kinds of different homeschool groups that we belong to. And, so it was a very different way that he grew up. And so his eyes were clear when he went to El Paso when he saw this mess. It wasn't normal for him. He wasn't immune to it or callous to it. He said, "What are they doing to children? This is not right. What are they trafficking? What are they stealing, smuggling? Why are they forging?" So, and on and on. And that's why he could document it. That's why, of course, he knew what to look for because he loved being an investigator. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be CID. Um, and that's already confirmed with the military that that's what he was inquiring about, um, going to school about, and so he was documenting what he saw and turning it in, and that's why he was in communication with Washington D.C. That's why he was in communication with FBI Houston, not FBI El Paso, because we know that FBI El Paso is totally compromised. And many others, and that's why Ray Velarde, the billionaire cartel founder of the Sinaloa Cartel, the most powerful cartel in the world, took interest in Richard Halliday. And days later, Richard was murdered. So, and now we have this connection with the Hart family and with El Mayo. And that will be, that will just really shock you. It will shock you. I think it shocked me. I think at this point, not much shocks me when I have to investigate the dismemberment of my son. Um, and him being disposed of at the Plenitude Crematorium, which is absolutely connected to Beto O'Rourke, who is absolutely the man that was uh, money poured into him by the likes of Woody Hunt to be president of the United States to get the White House. Thank God he is not in that White House. Um, yeah, so not much shocks me. But we have the names, we have the heart. Why do you think I even say the names? And and we have absolutely documented it. And I don't even say allege anymore, well, sometimes these people absolutely 5.5 years. Where is Ted Cruz? Where is Veronica Escobar? Where is Senator Cornyn? Senator Cornyn's on that list. So is Veronica Escobar for narco money. I think Ted Cruz's name needs to be on that list. because I know he's up to no good. I know what he has had on his desk and what he has failed to do, and that he gives more energy into aiding, abetting, and working for and being the mouthpiece of a foreign country than for our own country, especially for a U.S. Army soldier, um, that he wants, just like Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham wants to go to war all the time. He wants to send our sons and daughters to war all the time. William Timmons, dirty politician, very dirty politician, claims to be for the veterans. They operate in deception. And and that is all being exposed, thank God. Thank God. And I don't think a lot of people trust them anymore at all, because they've operated in deception for so long. And you'll hear deceiving things still about Richard's case. But we have checked and double checked, and it's been debunked. It's been debunked, and new evidence of the truth, um, that Dallas Hart is the prime suspect of taking Richard's life, is there. And, I just released documents to show that, and more are coming, because we're getting more and more official documents, and that were withheld from us from the beginning, at the beginning, or tampered with. Um, yes, so there is a lot going on behind the scenes, and just know that there is a real connection between El Mayo and the Harts. El Mayo and the Harts. I think that's really important for everyone to know, because it puts things into perspective of why Richard was such an interest to Ray Velarde, and why just days after, Richard was then taken, forcibly taken, just like El Mayo was forcibly taken. And it really is interesting that we are defending the rule of law here, and saying that El Mayo was forcibly taken, drugged, put on this plane, and it's all illegal. It's all illegal what they did to him. To take him to the FBI building, to delay. Maybe they finally booked him, but they delayed it. Maybe they didn't want any records of it. Maybe this is like all for show. Maybe their intention is always to let him go again very soon, um, because he knows who they are. You're talking about Jaime Esparza, James Bonneau Montoya, Steven Spitzer. He knows who these people are. He's probably been fine dining with them. So, I mean, you have the county judge, Ricardo Samaniago, who's not even a lawyer, okay? I hate that term, county judge, because it's so deceptive, right? It's like in charge of the commissioners. Um, he was fine dining with the flesh peddler, right? The owner of Plenitude Crematorium, the flesh peddler. And so was Carlos Manuel Salas meeting with the flesh peddler. So that tells you um, they're more interested in controlling this fallout. And it's uh, we're um, we're seeing the pressure because Governor of Chihuahua, Maru Campos, has fled the country. She's fled her own country, her own position. And of course, today, and I haven't read what happened, but President Scheinbaum came to Juarez to visit Plenitude Crematorium. So I'm anxious to see and hear our sources on what happened there. So as soon as we know, we'll let you know. Uh, because we are a country by the people, for the people, of the people. It's very important. You are the power. You have the power. You have the power to vote. You have the power to uh, to drive this to justice, and that means being involved with sharing and speaking out. That's why the freedom of speech is so important. Freedom of speech, speaking this out, and sharing it. So, thank you so much. We love you. God bless you.